Hello and welcome to Broken Entertainment. So today we're going to talk about this new rumor that was first reported by the YouTube channel Doomcock and is now on Bounding into Comics that Ahsoka Tano and Ahsoka Tano's upcoming spin-off TV show for The Mandalorian is going to actually rewrite Star Wars canon and erase the Disney sequel trilogy. This has been not this specific rumor, but the rumor that the sequel trilogy is going to be erased has been kind of floating around for a while now. And I'll get to what I think of that in a minute, but let's go ahead and get into the specifics of this one. So this is coming from Doomcock. What I'm about to tell you is information that comes from a source that has demonstrated extraordinary access in the past and provided me with a lot of excellent information in 2020. However, he does note that being said, since I cannot independently verify any of what I'm about to tell you, I must ask you to please regard all of this as rumor and take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, certainly. The dangerous thing about rumors, they're really interesting, but you just never know. Before he gets into the specifics of the rumor, Doomcock points to fellow Super WDW Pro's recent claims regarding a civil war within Lucasfilm and how the tides have turned against the Lucasfilm story group. So I'm not going to read this part of it line for line, but if you're not familiar, essentially there's been an ongoing rumor that there is a civil war in Lucasfilm between, on the one hand, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, and on the other, Kathleen Kennedy and all of her fellow agenda-driven story people. These are the people in charge of the sequel trilogy, the people in charge of the High Republic, versus Jon Favreau, who is in charge of The Mandalorian and all the spin-off shows that are coming out of that now. Clearly one is dramatically more successful and popular than the other. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, and I'm not sure. It sounds pretty believable to me, especially the way one side, that being Jon Favreau's side, is continuously outproducing the other. So it goes on to say, WDW Pro claimed that Lucasfilm Story Group, and specifically those attached to Star Wars The High Republic, are furious with Jon Favreau, The Mandalorian, and Luke Skywalker. Essentially, their argument is that no one is giving Kathleen Kennedy any credit because she did hire Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni to do The Mandalorian, but everybody keeps thanking those two for the successful things of The Mandalorian and not Kathleen Kennedy. And I believe that she would be pretty pissed about that, just because when it comes to producers and directors, there's a lot of ego going on there, and I could see that pissing somebody off. Not just Kathleen Kennedy in particular. And apparently the High Republic Story Group is angry because they believe that the Luke Skywalker surprise drove the fan base in that direction and away from their product, and that's why the High Republic isn't doing well. I think that's baloney. If the High Republic had been interesting and had been clearly a project of passion for the people working on it, I think it would have actually catapulted more people to the High Republic because of a general growing interest in Star Wars as opposed to a general growing interest in The Mandalorian. So they go on, they're just talking about that. He added that Favreau is in charge of the only Star Wars fans seem to care about. That is absolutely true. Nobody cares about the Disney sequel trilogy right now. Nobody cares about the movies that led up to that right now, with the potential exception of Rogue One. And certainly no one cares about the High Republic or the comics related to the High Republic or any of the other Star Wars comics because their sales numbers are abysmal. So he first points to information received from Bionic Woman producer Cameron Pasha. Doomcock explains, Cameron told me I received word from a friend connected at a very high level to Lucasfilm that Dave Filoni has a plan to erase the sequel trilogy and is already taking active steps to implement it. He then infers from WDW's Pros leak that Favreau and Filoni are working to retcon the sequels out of canon on their own authority without consulting anyone at Lucasfilm. That I find hard to believe. They would have to have some backing, whether it's Bob Iger or someone like that. Someone has to be aware of it and at least tacitly okay with it, because that would be one hell of a coup within a company if they had no support and just did it on their own. And I would think that as soon as it started to become obvious, they'd be fired if they didn't have anybody's support. Because remember, Kathleen Kennedy hired these two. So if nobody's backing them and they really are doing this, I don't see how they plan to keep their jobs. He then gets into what he describes as Favreau and Filoni's detailed plans to save Star Wars. The moment Luke took Grogu, everything in the timeline changed. Luke knows Grogu is being hunted at the end of The Mandalorian, though he's not sure why. Luke training Grogu is putting a chain of events into motion that will erase the sequel trilogy, a chain of events that begins in Chapter 13, The Jedi. He goes on to detail a scene that will allegedly be shown in the Ahsoka series that essentially takes place off camera in the Mandalorian episode. After her initial meeting with the Mandalorian Baby Yoda, she is watching him walking away when she hears a voice over her shoulder. My, how you have grown. Ahsoka turns and sees Anakin's Force Ghost smiling at her. Doomcock continues, they banter with each other fondly, Anakin calling her Snips, and Ahsoka deferring to him as Master Skywalker. Until Anakin gazes at Baby Yoda thoughtfully. That one is strong with the Force. Ahsoka nods. Yes, he is. The Mandalorian wants me to train him. And Anakin shakes his head. No, that is a task for another. You have changed many things and must continue the path you are walking. You will go to the Mandalorian and tell him to take the young one to an old Jedi temple. There he will contact the Jedi Master that will train him. He then adds, Ahsoka replies, the one that destroyed the Empire. Anakin nods. She says, your son? And Anakin replies, yes, he has a great deal to learn. So, that's very, very specific, right? This is supposed dialogue from a supposed episode of a show that is in production. We know Ahsoka is going to be a show. Presumably, it's already started on some level. Production. When rumors get very interesting to me is when they get that specific. Because generally, rumors that are made up or hearsay are extraordinarily vague. But when you start to have specific lines of dialogue and specific descriptions of scenes, that's pretty compelling to me. I don't know a lot about Doomcock's source. I know he's been right about some of the rumors that have come out and wrong about others, like anyone else will be reporting on rumors. Personally, I don't think this is going to go down. I know it's very specific, but there's essentially a couple of directions this can go if this is true. One, it is actually building to erase the canon, or it is building to reinforce it. And I find it very difficult to believe that this information could be coming out in somebody's hands and they could be in this civil war with Kathleen Kennedy and they could be preparing to undo essentially everything she's done, and they're doing it on their own without any support. That's a bunch of stuff that doesn't add up to me. Hopefully this is all true. That would be great for Star Wars. You could get a true revival of the franchise, and Disney could try their hand again at a sequel trilogy, and maybe people would watch it. But it's hard for me to believe. It's hard for me to believe that a company that has done all the things that Disney has done and continues to do some of those things is also willing to say, yes, please undo the 3 movies we did plus the High Republic. Because remember, the High Republic timeline tells us the First Order happens and that those movies happen. So you'd be erasing the movies and erasing the timeline established by the High Republic. That's a tall, tall order. It'd be one thing if the CEO was doing it and maybe they have Bob Iger's support or Bob Chapek or whoever it is behind the scenes now. And that's about the only way they could do any of this. And even then, it still would be completely unprecedented in media history. There's nothing that would compare to pulling that kind of thing off, especially in a corporate civil war scenario. So anyway, it says Ahsoka up to this point has already changed the Star Wars timeline, and her entire purpose moving forward is to continue changing the timeline away from the sequel trilogy. He then explains what the Ahsoka series will be about. He says the Ahsoka show will revolve around finding Emperor Palpatine. Ahsoka must locate Palpatine in his stronghold before attempting to stop him in the Veil. Because if she could sever his link to the Veil ahead of time, she would stand a much better chance of stopping him. So the Veil is this like reality between realities that was established in Star Wars Rebels, and it's a place where someone can actually travel both time and space, and it's loosely how potentially Palpatine survived in Rise of Skywalker. It's pretty convoluted, and it is a built-in way that they could retcon the whole thing, yes. I kind of think if this is true, the only way this is true is that they don't technically retcon it as much as make it an alternate reality, and then you could take the High Republic and place it within that alternate reality, and then those people could spend their time trying to prove that their version is better while still producing material and not actually conflicting with the primary official Star Wars timeline. Otherwise, I don't see how this happens any other way. And it definitely doesn't happen without any support at the top. And then that makes me wonder, okay, if they have that support at the top, why don't they just fire Kathleen Kennedy? Why the whole Civil War scenario? You know, does she have dirt on someone? Is she threatening to go to the media and do some whole Me Too thing or something? You know, get them canceled on Twitter because that always has such a huge effect. You know, just ignore it and move on. So all questions that we're facing with this rumor, I really, really hope it's true. But to me, you know, to quote Warhammer 40,000, hope is the first step on the road to disappointment. So we'll see where this goes. I'll definitely keep an eye on it. And if I see anything, if we see anything new, I'll be sure to cover that. But I think the only way we're going to find out is as Ahsoka comes out and new episodes of The Mandalorian come out. If this is true, we'll start to see it build in that direction, I think, pretty quickly. Worst case scenario, they're actually moving to reinforce everything. Because they could also be doing all this to show how Palpatine survived and how you get to the Rise of Skywalker in The Last Jedi. So that people are no longer able to say, well, that doesn't make sense. How did that happen? How did that happen? This doesn't make sense. They can always point to these shows and pull the whole, haha, you liked this, and now it's official. You know, that's a very cynical way of looking at it. And hopefully it's not the case. I'm just pointing it out because it is a possibility, especially with the way Disney has treated its fans up to this point. So hopefully it all turns out to be true. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing and ring the bell for notifications, and I will see you next time.